Hey guys, hello everyone. Welcome to your Fridays in your Maxillary Week. If you're a physician who's overwhelmed, who's tired of what's happening with the system, we really try to bring you some tools so that you can not only thrive in that, not only survive in that system, but also thrive and get out, retake and regain control of your physician life. We have a wonderful program today with Dr. Nerissa Kreher. We're happy to have you here. Welcome to be for being, to come here to our Maxillary Fridays.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I don't know if you guys remember, we're doing this in support of our physician entrepreneur mastermind. We teach physicians to have a personal physicians who are looking for a personal professional change. We have this development program, and as part of that, we have our podcast. It's called Design Your Physician Life. And this week on Tuesday, we had Dr. Nerissa Kreher talking to us about how to design a life in pharma, which she has done in such a wonderful way. And we have her here. And we want you, after we're done here, to go and listen to that podcast if you can, and listen to her story, listen for wonderful tips. And we have some things that we didn't get to discuss in the podcast that we'd like to touch on today. We're bringing for you. One of the important things that we discuss is, characteristics that physicians must have when looking for a job in pharma. And there's characteristics and there's some things that we struggle with as physicians, and some of them is an imposter syndrome. And Dr. Kreher here wanted to touch a little bit about that because she's a coach. She coaches physicians who want to go into pharma. So tell us a little bit about what you find regarding this imposter syndrome on physicians.
Yeah, such an important topic. And I actually, just a tidbit, the other day, someone pointed out that we should be calling this imposter phenomenon instead of syndrome. And I make that mistake all the time, but so that it's not as if this is a problem, this is part of the human condition. So I thought that was interesting. But what I see in speaking with lots of physicians and talking with other colleagues, I think this is something that is inherent to being overachievers. When people think about the pharmaceutical industry as an option, they immediately think that they don't have the right training or they need another certificate or degree to be able to do it. Do they need an MBA, for example? And my answer is always no. And I like to point out,
Why is that?
yeah, so it's very simple. But, as physicians, we are more educated from a degree standpoint than many, many people. We have our 4 years of undergraduate typically, we have 4 years of medical school, 3 years of residency at least, and then many others have lots more than that, right, with fellowship training.
Oh my goodness, yes. We did all that stuff.
We did do all of that, yes. And so if you put all of that together, you have all the training you need to make a successful transition into pharma. Many of the things that people worry about, like, I don't know enough about business or I don't know enough about finance, those are things you learn on the job and you sort of soak it up like a sponge because you're a physician, you made it through medical school.
You're
So,
used to learn a lot of things in a short period of time. So that's the characteristic that you need somebody who can process a lot of information, make decisions right there. And we are able to do that.
that's 100% correct. So, reminding ourselves of that instead of looking at all the things we don't know how to do, really spend the time thinking about all the things you actually do know how to do and reframe your thinking around what do you bring to the table. You know, we can run codes, right? We can do very, very difficult things, and you can bring those skills to any job, really.
So besides being a person who can process all that information over a short period of time. The job many times will learn they will not expect you necessarily to know all these things. And I understand that each company will have its own processes, and obviously it's always good to have a certain base of knowledge and ways of communicating. But as I understand, each company will have its own set of processes and values, and the culture and things that at times they might not want you to come with certain knowledge because they want you to learn the ways of the company. Is that true?
Mhm. Yes. And, I've worked in several different companies throughout my career. And I think that is one of the things when I have a new employee, whether they're a physician or not, being very careful early on to listen more than you talk. And I tell my physicians that are making that transition, that's very important. Listen more than you talk. Learn before you start sharing lots of opinions, because you need to understand what is the culture of the company, what are the norms of the company. And so you're right, so much of it is on the job training. You bring this sort of level of knowledge with you, but then you have to be flexible enough to morph that knowledge into the company processes and procedures.
So, as physicians, from the beginning, we're told, "Oh, you're the captain of the ship. You get there and you do your job, right?" Like immediately, and that's one of the concerns. But when you talk about management and talking about these corporate jobs, there's a lot of like the first 90 days, right? And the first 90 days are going to be different than going to just a medical work. Can you tell us a little bit about the first 90 days, which is a transition that we have as physicians from being that physician working, doing all this stuff to this other type of corporate work?
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the first 90 days. There's actually a book that I point clients towards. It's a very helpful book, very helpful program. So I think one of the tenets of that is one-on-one meetings with people that are going to be either on your team, part of a cross-functional team. So really meeting with the people and understanding what is their day-to-day responsibility, how are you going to be interfacing with them. So that's really important to be able to do that. I already mentioned, listening, soaking in information and understanding how the teams are functioning. Um, it is it is something where, as a physician on a team in pharma, you're not necessarily the decision maker all the time. There are lots of people who are making the decision as a team. And so being able to, you know, uh, maybe dampen down that need of it's my decision and I'm responsible for it. In pharma, it's much more team driven decisions, scenarios, and then looking at pros and cons, and as a team, making the best decision.
Yeah, so that's quite a transition. Talking about teams, there's something that I'm very excited about. I'm sure you're way more than I am. Uh, but not every day you meet somebody who's going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, right? And that is a team effort. It's not just a one person effort. And combining this thing about imposter syndrome, like, will I be able to do this, this job of climbing this mountain? And how can I do it with others? Tell us about your experience, how you're getting ready to to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. What sort of things maybe you thought about that you had to overcome in terms of mindset, and how is it that you came across this whole thing? Tell us about your Mount Kilimanjaro adventure that's up to come.
Yeah, I'm so happy to. So, this is a fundraiser for the Fred Hutch Cancer Center in Seattle, Washington. And it's a group of biotech and pharma executives. There are around 25 of us that will be doing this climb together. And it's the brainchild of a biotech journalist named Luke Timmerman. And he does this once a year. alternating between climbing Mount Kilimanjaro or to the Mount Everest base camp. And so I got invited to join the Kilimanjaro climb. So it's in February of 2023. So we're in the throes of our training. Mount Kilimanjaro is not really a technical climb, so we don't have, belays and that sort of thing. You really just mentally have to be prepared to walk for many miles per day. And so as a team, there are a number of us in the Boston area. We're meeting up every weekend and doing long treks throughout some of the beautiful scenery we have here in New England. Like our last climb over the past weekend was an 8-mile hike in the fells, which is one of the wooded areas. So it's been great from the standpoint of meeting other people from our biotech industry, and really motivating one another. So just a great opportunity, and I'm so excited to be a part of the team.
Tell me about the communication within the team. Anything that has gotten you ready? Because, walking is something, but the truth is that not everybody does it. It's because, there's a big reason that many people don't do it. It's still a huge physical challenge and mental challenge. So you have to have good communication with the team that's going to climb with you, right?
Yes, absolutely. So this group of people, I'll tell you a story because I think this is great. One day we went out and it was raining, and we sort of, I think each of us kind of thought, do I really want to do this morning at 7 a.m. on a Sunday? It's pouring down rain. And we all looked at each other and sort of smiled and said, this is a great training opportunity because it might rain while we're hiking, right? And so it's that kind of energy and spirit that the team members bring. On that same hike, it was very slippery, and I think each of us ended up falling a couple of times. But we literally helped each other up and, gave each other that motivation of, we've got one more mile, we can do this. It's another mile that we're getting under our belt, that we're going to be better off for training. People send around podcasts that they're found about Kilimanjaro. We have a WhatsApp group. People are helping each other with the fundraising, so giving each other ideas, sharing amongst different sponsors. So it's just been a really great team effort all around.
You have some information for people who are watching us, right, regarding this fundraiser?
I do. So you mentioned my coaching of physicians that want to transition. So to help with my fundraising, I have offered that if people want to do a session with me, an hour-long session, for a donation of $200 or more to my climb, they can have a 1-hour coaching session with me. That's about half my typical going rate. So it's for a great cause, and people can get the coaching they might want. So you can find this if you go to the Fred Hutch 𝗗𝗏𝗀𝗄𝗏 website. You can search my name and then just reach out to me by email and we'll get it all set up.
I'm going to say Fred Hutch
Cancer Center.
CancerCenter.com.
Yeah. And then Climb for Cancer. And then my name.
There you go, guys. Let's move on to a topic that I want to cover because, we talk about pharma, and that word, depending where you're talking, might be a good word, might be a word that people don't receive that well. And then we're physicians here who really want to do good for our communities and for our world. Let's talk about the impact of a physician when they move from working the one-on-one or even the local research office that you might have as a researcher, and then you're being approached or you have explored to go to pharma. How does the impact change? What do you see as a physician that you can do in terms of doing good for the world, working for pharma? What's your point of view?
Yeah. So as a physician working in pharma, first and foremost, what I care about is the safety of the people that are either using drugs that are already approved or that we're studying in clinical development. And, that is a tenet, first do no harm, of any physician. But in the pharma industry, that is our focus as well. So safety first. It's also more than that, though. For your listeners, I work in the rare disease arena. And in the rare disease arena, and I think this is the case in bigger diseases as well. My experience is mostly rare disease. But we have the opportunity to interface with patients and families. So I'm attending family and patient conferences related to the disease areas that I'm working in. So I'm listening to patients and families. I'm trying to understand from them what matters. So if I'm developing a drug and I'm studying endpoints that are not at all relevant to the patient or the family, that's not very helpful. So what we try to do is really bring in that input. What matters to patients from a functional standpoint, from a quality of life standpoint? And that's really what we want to incorporate into our clinical trials so that we're developing drugs that really matter to people. And, that's important, of course, to the FDA as well. So it's beneficial to everyone. But to me, that's really where, as a physician, I'm able to really listen to people and incorporate that into clinical trials at the level of the biopharma company. And that impact, if we're successful in developing a drug, we're able to impact many, many patients in a way that individually I wouldn't be able to do. So, I actually get pretty emotional about being able to think about the families that I've been able to meet and interact with across the course of my career.
Do you have any particular story that comes to mind about any particular family or set of families or condition that really taught you as being a physician working in pharma?
Yes. Actually, I can think of two that immediately come to mind. I'll share one. So I was involved in the development of a drug for an ultra rare disease called hypophosphatasia. And so it's a multisystemic disease. It has specific impact on the bone. And before the drug was developed, there was no therapy for these patients. And in fact, there was actually very little medical knowledge about these patients. So even talking to physician specialists, it was so rare that they would confuse it with other diseases. And so we were able to not only get a drug on the market that has literally saved lives. So these patients would die very, very early in childhood, and their whole natural history has completely been changed by this drug. But not only that, we were able to significantly impact the awareness of this disease such that physicians now are educated about it and know to think about it as a potential diagnosis because there is a therapy. So that's really has been an incredibly rewarding part of my career.
It's amazing. We have, as physicians, we have like that one-on-one, that patient physician relationship. But I just can't, thinking I haven't done pharma, I've done some research, but the lives, as you say, you can touch and affect all over the world. That really makes an impact, a dent right there. And being involved in that must be amazing. Before
Yeah.
we go, like, I want to remind our viewers to do hashtag replay, hashtag live, and then go to the Dr. Nerissa Kreher's website if you want to learn more about how to become a physician working with pharma. She will help anybody who's interested in being coached to get there and impact the lives of many. Can you give us your website where people can find you?
Sure. It's www.industrymdcoach.com.
There you go, guys. Any final thoughts before we go and going to train back to that to Mount Kilimanjaro training?
Yeah, just to say, the biopharma industry is an option for all physicians, regardless of specialty. It's something to consider, at least to explore and learn about. So keep your options open as you think about career steps.
Well, thank you very much for being here. You have a great, great weekend. I wish that all the best, especially in this, all that walking you're gonna do, and then for all for a good cause. Have a great, wonderful weekend, you guys. If you want to learn more about how to retake and regain control of your physician life, just visit us or our website, maxallure.com. That is maxallure.com. Please go and listen to the podcast with Dr. Nerissa Kreher for this week, where she expands more on this topic about, designing a life as working for pharma. That's Design Your Physician Life. You can find it in any of the major platforms. And you have a wonderful time. We'll see you next week.